What's going on, duelists? It's your boy Nick, bringing you on the channel today, for the first time in a very long time, an update to my FA Metalfoes deck profile. Now, for those of you who've been with me since the very beginning, will know that FA happens to be one of my favorite archetypes in the game, and it's actually the deck that pretty much founded this channel. It's the first deck that I played competitively. Ended up getting second place at my locals during toss format, which was really exciting. And obviously I have those older videos on my channel if you want to, look down into the archives and check those out. But FA is a deck that I haven't picked up, honestly, in at least 2 years now. And it's a deck that I hold dear to my heart for the reasons I stated before. And it's just a fun deck. Now, is it competitive? Is it competitive now? Absolutely not. A lot has changed with the game, with the format, the meta, the ban lists. A lot has happened since toss format, and while the deck may have been competitive back then, it no longer is now. I've been tinkering with this list for a very long time because it's something that I've wanted to bring to the channel for a while now, especially since we're so close to reaching that 1,000 subscriber benchmark. Again, I can't thank you all for your continued support. If you're watching this right now and you're not subscribed, subscribe. I'm working my way to 1,000 subs and I need your help to get there. But like I was saying, it's a deck that I've been tinkering with behind the scenes for a little bit. And honestly, it's kind of a shell of its former self. Gone are the days of Halka-Fibrax Auroradon combo where we just, keep spamming Despot 01 and tokens to the field to make all these amazing Synchro monsters. We don't have Halka-Fibrax anymore. Auroradon is also still banned. And now the deck just kind of feels very fair, quote unquote. And I know that sounds like silly to say, but fair in Yu-Gi-Oh! No longer cuts it anymore. It's 2023, the format's just really insane, and unfortunately this deck no longer really has the chops to compete. So I wouldn't even consider this a rogue deck. It is the very definition of as casual as you can get, basically. But I just wanted to bring it back to the channel, because there are a lot of people who want to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! But are a little intimidated, not only by the cards and how they work, but by the price point. So I wanted to bring you guys something that not only is extremely budget, you could literally build this entire deck for basically under $20. Maybe even less. I might be overshooting it, honestly. But it's a deck, like I said, that means a lot to me because it's a deck that started the channel in the first place. And whether or not it's competitive, it's still fun as hell to play. And I just wanted to bring it to you guys today. So with that being said, this is my take on FA Metalfoes for the current format, I guess. Like I said, it's extremely casual, so don't expect, if you build this deck yourself, don't expect to go to locals and dominate. I'm even excluding certain cards out of the extra deck. Even though I own those cards, I'm not playing things like Baron de Fleur, just because, number one, it's out of budget for most people who want to build a deck like this, and number two, if the deck's not even meta relevant, then there's almost no need to play cards like that, if you're just trying to have a good time, So, hopefully you guys can appreciate the list that I brought to you today. It's a 44 card list, but enough with the introductions. Let's go ahead and get started into the profile. For those of you new to the channel, welcome. My name's Nick. We do Yu-Gi-Oh! Content mainly focused around rogue and casual decks alike. If that's things that you're interested in, then I highly encourage you to subscribe, like the video, and comment down below on what you think of my update to FA. So for those of you unaware, FA stands for Formula Athlete. It exists in the same lore that UAs exist, which are Ultra Athletes, but they are basically like a cross between F-Zero and... how should I describe them? I guess F-Zero is the closest thing I could relate them to, but it's the only archetype in the game that deals with level modulation, which I find really cool. And they Synchro summon, which is one of my favorite extra deck summoning mechanics. So we're going to start things off with a playset of FA Auto Navigator. Single-handedly the best card in the deck. Level 1 Wind Machine Tuner, 0 attack, 0 defense. If she's normal or special summoned, you can add an FA Field spell from deck to hand, which makes her basically a terraforming on legs. Also, if you control an FA monster whose level is higher than its original level, while this card's in the hand or grave, you can target that FA monster, special summon the Auto Navigator from hand or graveyard by reducing that FA's monster level to its original, and then Autonav's level becomes the amount reduced. So she's a very flexible tuner. You know, she's an extender, but sometimes she can even be a starter in some cases. But overall, in any FA variant, you definitely want to max out on this card. It's extremely important to the theme. Like I said, her searching the field spells alone is a huge consistency boost, and I'll explain why when we get to the spells. But 3 Autonav to start. Following that up, we are playing triple copies of FA Hang On Mock. This card is really nuts. Think of this like an in-archetype Masked Hero Dark Law for FA, basically. So it's like a one-sided Macrocosmos, which is really insane. But on top of that, it gains attack equal to its level times 300. And then each time an FA spell or trap is activated, or a FA spell trap effect, this card gains a level. That effect is not once per turn. And then while this card is level 7 or higher, like I said, any card sent to your opponent's graveyard is banished instead. In addition to that, he is also unaffected by the activated effects of monsters, or from opponent's monsters, whose level or rank is lower than his. So this card is, once you get the ball rolling, this thing kind of becomes really insane. Because like I said, it being a one-sided Macrocosmos on a card that gets, gains attack times this level, there is no cap to how many levels FA can gain. So this is one of the few archetypes in the game that, they can go above level 12, which is the standard printed level on most cards, which I find very unique. So you definitely want to max out on Hang On Mock. He is pretty much the best non-tuner FA, right behind Auto Navigator, who happens to be their only in-archetype tuner. But now you're probably going to laugh. That rounds out the FA monsters. Now you're probably sitting here wondering, hey, I thought this was an FA deck. Trust me when I say that it is. However, if you look at FA as an archetype, the only monsters, in my opinion, that are worth playing are these two. The other monsters, just, in my opinion, are just bricks. Like, they don't do anything. Like, they all require setup. And as far as the amount of investment you need to get those cards to the levels they want to be, versus the payoffs you get, Hang On Mock is the best one out of all those cards. I understand that, there's Sonic Meister and Whip Crosser, Turbocharger, Dark Dragster. All of those cards, in my opinion, are very situational, and none of them really help extend outside of Autonav. You don't want to open up a handful of level 4 FAs because it's just not going to get you anywhere. So those are the only FA monsters that I'm playing, but like I said, don't lose hope. This is still an FA deck through and through. But now moving on, like I said, this is FA Metalfoes, so we are playing a Metalfoes engine in this deck. So we're going to run through that very quickly. We're on 2 Bismugear, 2 Steelin, followed by 2 Silvered. Let me move these around a bit. And then we are playing 1 Melcaster, 1 Volflame. So let me explain why we play Metalfoes in this deck. So we haven't gotten to the spells yet, but a little bit of a spoiler. So the FAs have 4 different field spells in archetype, which is pretty insane to say. But 3 out of those 4 field spells happen to give you an effect when they're destroyed by a card effect. Now, what's ironic about this deck is, despite it being race car themed, FA in its pure form is unironically very slow. It's not a fast deck at all. You're supposed to gain advantage by blowing up your own field spells. The problem is that the archetype doesn't have a lot of ways to do that, at least in archetype. So that's why I decided to run a Metalfoes package in this deck. Why? Because for those of you unfamiliar, every single Metalfoes monster, with the exception of a few, they have the exact same pendulum effect. And that pendulum effect is, once per turn, you can target one other face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, you can set a Metalfoes spell or trap directly from your deck. So think of all these Metalfoes monsters, aside from them being pendulums, obviously, which is a whole can of worms in itself, they are able to, once per turn, target a card you control face up. So, for example, one of your FA field spells. You can destroy that card, and then you can set a Metalfoes spell trap directly from deck, while also triggering the graveyard effect of the FA field spell that you just destroyed. Now, is that, it's something that I've been playing for a long, long time. Even way back during TOS format, I played a Metalfoes in my FA deck because it helped speed the deck up, and it helped improve consistency by a pretty large margin, in my opinion. Like I said, FA Pure does not have very many good ways to blow up its own field spells outside of a quick play spell that's not searchable unless you're destroying a field spell, which is kind of backwards, but okay. And then you have Dark Dragster. But again, Dark Dragster sometimes can be a brick in your hand if you don't have the proper cards in hand needed to facilitate it. So that's why we're not running it. And we just replace those cards with Metalfoes, which not only are they good at blowing up the field spell, but they also function as pendulum scales, which allow you to, summon more cards to field and whatnot. So most of the Metalfoes monsters are vanillas, meaning they don't have monster effects. The only ones that do are Melcaster and Bismugear. Bismugear, if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, we can add a Metalfoes monster from deck to hand during the end phase of the turn. And then Melcaster is if it's destroyed by battle or card effect, we can add a face-up Metalfoes monster from our extra deck back to our hand, which is pretty cool. So you just have like some nice recovery and recursion there. Before we move on, there's one more Metalfoes monster that we main deck, and that is one copy of Metalfoes Vanisher. Now, the reason why I didn't talk about this card with the other Metalfoes is because, unlike those, he's actually pretty different. He does not have a scale effect that pops a face-up card. His scale effect's entirely different, but it doesn't really come up in this deck, more so in a pure Metalfoes list. But his monster effect is very interesting. It states, while this card's in your hand, you can target 2 face-up cards you control, including a Metalfoes card, destroy them, and if you do, special summon this card from hand. So he's able to pop 2 cards you control, one of which being a Metalfoes card. He can special himself, and then upon his special summon, if he's special summoned by the effect of a Metalfoes card, including his own effect, we can target a monster the opponent controls or that they have in their graveyard and banish it. So this card is very cool as a 1-of in the deck. To drop on your opponent's very large, stat-wise, 2,900, and being able to target and banish any monster that they control or have in their grave is pretty useful in my opinion. So moving on with the monster lineup, we are playing a very small Superheavy Samurai package in this deck. So we're playing 3 Superheavy Samurai Motorbike, followed by 2 copies of Prodigy Wakaushi, and then 1 Monk Big Benkei, followed by the 1 Soul Gaia booster. Now, we are playing a small Superheavy Sam package in this deck list simply because this is a pretty good way to facilitate a number of synchros. Whether you want to go for a level 8 synchro, it can also go for link plays. It's just free fodder that you can summon to board without having to commit to your normal summon, which is something that FA drastically needs because FAs don't have enough extension in archetype. So in order for you to be able to put bodies on field, without, like, because the thing with FAs is, like, if you normal summon Autonav and she gets, like, Veilered, Imperm Dash, anything, unless your hand is looking really nice, you're probably just past turn. And that's what I was saying about this deck being extremely casual. It just doesn't have the chops to be able to play through any kind of disruption. And your end boards also, no matter how hard you try, are never going to be at the level that they once were, back when we had Hulk Auroradon combos. So, we played this as a, supplementary package just to help, push the deck a little higher as far as, ceiling goes. But the reason why we're on these quantities specifically is because, as you know, Superheavy Samurai only work if you don't control spells and traps in grave. We are obviously playing spells and traps in this deck, which means that if we don't, the longer the duel goes, the less likely we are to be able to use these cards' effects. So that's why we run the quantities that we do, because once you use them for the first time, and if you go burn the motorbike into Wakaushi effect to scale itself, and then scale the Big Benkei and special itself, once you do that line, you're not going to want to draw these cards again because they're just going to be bricks in the deck moving forward. So that's why we just are on the 3 bike, 2 Wakaushi, 1 Big Benkei, and 1 booster, because you're pretty much just, as long as you open bike or Wakaushi in your opening hand, you can do the Super Heavy Sam combo. And like I said, it helps increase the ceiling of the deck. But even so, this card is still a great addition to FA because it is another machine tuner that they can play that also modulates levels, which is pretty cool. So that's our ratio for the Super Heavy Samurai cards. Moving on, some spice we play in this deck is 2 copies of Ignis Phoenix, the Draco Slayer, followed by 1 Majesty Pegasus, the Draco Slayer. So we play this package because with our Metalfoes engine, we can actually scale the Draco Slayer or summon it as a monster, and then use the Metalfoes scale effects to blow up the Draco Slayer, causing it to special the Majesty Pegasus from the deck. She'll be treated as a tuner when that happens, and when she's special summoned by the effect of a Draco Slayer card, or Pendulum summoned, we can search for a field spell and then discard a card, which is pretty cool. So we play this as a small supplementary engine in the deck. Following that up, rounding out the monsters, is 1 Karakura Gamma model 4624, Shiro Kanishi. hopefully I didn't butcher that. And then 1 copy of Chronograph Sorcerer. So these are the last 2 monsters that we main deck. We play this because we can special summon this off of one of the Karakuri Synchros we play in the extra deck. And the Chronograph is just a nice extender in this deck because we do like to pop cards we control. Chronograph can special himself from our hand, as well as special another monster along with him. So I thought that was a pretty nice package. So those rounds out the monster count. Now, we're not running any hand traps in this deck list again, simply because this deck is designed to, number 1, be extremely budget, and number 2, it's just a very casual and fun deck. Something that, you know, you can pick up and play with one of your friends if they have another deck that, you know, you don't really want to play meta. I didn't really focus on this deck being extremely competitive because I knew that it wasn't going to be that, no matter how hard I tried to work at it. The deck just suffers from too many inherent flaws. So I just decided to build the most casual FA list I could. And like I said, it's great for people who want to learn, you know, different game mechanics and summoning mechanics. And like I said, it's extremely budget friendly. So if you want to pick this up, like I said, the deck is dirt cheap. So moving on to the spells now, we're going to cover the FA spells, field spells. We're on 2 Hyper Stadium, 2 Circuit Grand Prix, 2 Off-Road Grand Prix, and then a playset of City Grand Prix. Now, we run these ratios specifically because we are going to burn through a lot of our field spells. The problem is that you don't want to brick on them, and that's something that I have come across with this deck, is you just opening a handful of field spells and not really having a play. But Hyper Stadium, even though it's UA in name, by effect it's always treated as an FA card, and upon activation it lets you search for an FA monster from deck to hand. In addition to that, you can reveal a field spell in your hand and then pay 1,000 life points, and you can normal summon an FA in addition to your normal summon set. The only drawback with Hyper Stadium is that, unlike the rest of the field spells here, it does not have an effect that triggers when it's destroyed by a card effect, unfortunately. If that was the case, this card would definitely be a 3 of, but I digress. 2 Circuit Grand Prix basically increases the levels of all FA monsters on the field by 2 during the battle phase. And then if an FA monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, we get to draw a card, which is pretty cool. Then again, if it's destroyed by a card effect, it lets us search for any FA card from deck to hand. Circuit Grand Prix Off-Road and City Grand Prix all have the exact same graveyard effect, where when they're destroyed by a card effect, we can add any FA card from deck to hand, which I think is very unique and why we play the Metalfoes package. Off-Road Grand Prix increases the levels of all FAs on field by 2 during the main phase, and then if an FA monster we control is destroyed by battle, we can discard a random card from the opponent's hand. And then City Grand Prix, in my opinion, is the best one, and which is why we max out on it. It increases the levels of all FA monsters on field by 2 during the main and the battle phase. In addition to that, FA monsters we control cannot be targeted by the opponent's card effects, which is great. So that's the ratio of our FA field spells, respectively. Very cool cards, really fun, you know, with the level manipulation mechanic that FA has. Now moving on to the quick plays, we're on triple copies of FA Test Run. Very good card in my opinion. It's just a free non-target pop, and then it has a great graveyard effect where you can destroy a face-up card you control by banishing it from grave to then special an FA monster from the deck. So we max out on this. It's literally the best FA spell that is not a field spell. And then we play 1 Pit Stop. Pit Stop's okay for just generic draw power. You can target an FA monster you control, reduce its level by 2, and if you do, you draw cards equal to the number of pit stops in your graveyard, plus 1. And then while this card's in grave, you can banish it from grave to target an FA in your graveyard and special summon it. So it's kind of like a Monster Reborn. You just play it as a 1-of, though, because it is a hard once per turn, and I don't know. I felt like the 1-of is the perfect ratio in my opinion. And then to round out the remaining spells, we play 1 Metalfoes Fusion, followed by 1 Para-Metalfoes Fusion. These are spells that we can set off of our Metalfoes scales when we activate their effects to pop something. And then for the last 2 cards in deck are 2 Metalfoes Traps, which are 2 copies of Metalfoes Counter. Another really cool card we can set off of our Metalfoes scales, basically allowing us to special Metalfoes monsters from the deck whenever a card we control is destroyed by battle or card effect. So that rounds out the main deck, guys. Like I said, extremely casual. It's a 44 card list. It's just a deck that means a lot to me because, like I said, it's got a lot of history with the channel, and it's just very fun to play. So I couldn't be happier to bring it to you guys today to showcase for you. But now moving on to the extra deck, we're going to start with the fusion monsters first. We're on double copies of Metalfoes Mithrilium, followed by 1 copy of Metalfoes Orichalc. But Thrillium is a very powerful fusion monster for the theme, allowing us to target 2 Metalfoes cards in our grave and 1 card on the field. We shuffle the targets from grave into our deck, and if we do, we turn the target on the field to the hand. Then, if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, we get to special summon a Metalfoes Pendulum monster from our graveyard or that's face up in our extra deck. So overall, a very cool card. And then Orichalc is just nice, a big beat stick, and it does double piercing damage. And when it's sent from the field to grave, it allows us to target a card in the field and destroy it. Now moving on to our synchros, we play 1 copy of Garden Rose Flora, who at this point might as well be an honorary FA. She allows you to destroy a field spell to produce a level 2 token, and she can quick sync during the opponent's turn using monsters you control as material, including herself, which is very cool. We play 1 copy of Symphonic Warrior Rocks. This is a very cool wind machine synchro pendulum that has some pretty cool effects. Basically, if it's destroyed in the monster zone by battle or card effect, we get to place it in the pendulum zone. And then during each of our standby phases, we can add a face-up pendulum monster from our extra deck back to our hand, which is pretty cool. Then we play 1 Ancient Fairy Dragon. Now this, we did not have the luxury of playing back during TOS format, because obviously AFD was banned. It did come back, albeit errated, unfortunately, but we are still able to play it now, which is very cool. It's a bit sad that obviously, you know, weren't able to use it back then, because FA really would have been crazy, but I can still appreciate the card for what it is, and I'm glad that we now are able to play this card, so it does feel pretty good to have it in the deck. We play 1 FA Dawn Dragster, which is FA's in archetype spell Trap Negate. It also does piercing, gains a level every time an FA spell or trap effect is activated, which is pretty nice. Then we play 1 High Speed Red Kite Drake, 1 Karakuri Steel Shogun Model 00X Burrito, and then 1 Ignister Prominence the Blasting Draco Slayer. So these are our level 8 synchros that we opt to run in this deck. Kite Drake is just insane. It's either a full field nuke or a Dark Ruler on legs. Burrito's nice because it allows us to special summon a Karakuri from our deck, which is why we main deck the level 1 Karakuri tuner, because we can special summon it off the Burrito effect, giving us another tuner, allowing us to synchro climb even higher. And then obviously Ignister Prominence is nice since we do play the Pendulums. Just having that non-targeting, non-destruction removal in the deck is nice. Moving on to our level 9s, we play 1 Motorhome Transport, followed by 1 Karakuri Super Shogun Model 00N Burebu, and then 1 Vermilion Dragon Mech for our level 9 synchros of choice. What's nice about FAs is that because of all the level manipulation, you have the ability to play pretty much any level synchros that you want. So the world's your oyster when it comes to that. Like, you're not really locked into making like only level 10s or level 8s, for example. You can pretty much make any level synchro you want as long as you're willing to invest in like modulating the levels enough to do it, which I think is very cool. Obviously, all these cards have very unique effects. Motorhome just becomes a really big like Towers-like card. Burebu is nice, being able to quick effect banish monsters on field, and Vermilion Dragon Mech is just nice, being able to pop any card on board, and also floats when it is destroyed. Moving on to our last synchro we may play is 1 copy of Superheavy Samurai Brave Misarao. Just a generic level 12 Superheavy Samurai synchro. It can attack while it's in defense, it can self-protect, and it allows us to draw cards during the opponent's turn, which is really, really cool as well. And then to round out the extra deck is actually 1 copy of Beyond the Pendulum, a very cool Link 2. Obviously, it's not Electromite, but, you know, we'll take it because, you know, beggars can't be choosers. But we can actually get into this card using the Superheavy Samurai package, and because we are playing Metalfoes and FA field spells that want to be destroyed, we can do some pretty cute things with this card overall. But that's going to wrap up the profile, guys. Like I said, this is my update to FA Metalfoes for the, you know, July 2023 format. Again, this is not designed to be a competitive deck. This is super casual, and it's just really a deck that you can build and just tinker with and have a lot of fun with. You know, if you want to get somebody into the game and, you know, you want to get them a really cheap deck, this is a good place to start. And if, you know, teaches them how to synchro summon, you know, how chain links work and whatnot. A very fun deck overall. Let me know down in the comments below if you actually want to see me do combo tutorials and test hands for this deck, or if you'd like to see this in a live duel video, perhaps. If you get this video to 20 likes, I will do both for you guys. So like I said, like, subscribe, comment down below on what you guys thought. help me. Like I said, I'm working my way to 1,000 subscribers. I need your help to get there. So subscribe if you haven't done so already. And like I said, stay tuned for more awesome Yu-Gi-Oh content coming your way. I'm really looking forward to Dune, Duelist Nexus, coming out at the end of the month. I'm definitely going to have a lot of updates for decks once that set releases. But yeah, like I said, in the meantime, guys, thank you all for your continued support. This is Nick, signing out.